Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about the power of literacy. That's why we're honored to have with us James Pond, President and CEO of Governor's Early Literacy Foundation. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. When you talk about the power of literacy, we'll talk all about that, but let's start with a little bit of history and context. Give us some background for the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation.
Yeah, so Governor's Early Literacy Foundation was founded in 2004 by Governor Bredesen, and it was an effort really to meet the needs of our earliest learners from birth to 5. And that initial capitalization was the state creating a public and private partnership with each county in our state to deliver Dolly Parton's Imagination Library to every child across the state at no cost to families. Really, really powerful program. In 2019, when I came on as the CEO, we went through a revisioning. What more could we be doing around literacy? And so since then, we've expanded our work to serve kids from birth through 3rd grade, really meeting that need of kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade at that critical period as they're learning to read before they read to learn. And then we started looking at how do we build a culture of reading in our state. Tennessee has always been known as the education state. And so we started creating outdoor reading experiences through Storybook Trails, putting book buses out on the road. We even created a statewide collaborative to bring all of our early literacy partners together so that we can be rowing together in the same direction. We don't believe our foundation is the answer. We just believe we are a part of a greater whole of all the efforts being made to help our kids become proficient learners. And so that has been the crux of our foundation, is really looking for what more can we be doing to leverage children to be lifelong learners.
Hopefully all of us understand and know the power of literacy, everything from reading menus at restaurants to being able to be productive at work. But talk about why this focus is so important. You mentioned there's a difference, you start to transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And so that's a pivotal, intersection right there. But when you talk about workforce development and why this is so critical to the success of our state, talk about the power of literacy.
Yeah, well, there's the individual power, and I really look at reading as it is one of the most powerful forms of magic. When you think about what you're asking a child's brain to do, to make little symbols make sense and meaning, and to then begin to articulate that in your mind and critically think, that's one element of it that I think is really powerful. There's also the personal enrichment aspect of it. It makes us better citizens if we can read, because then we can understand, we can think critically, we can vote. And then as we're watching Tennessee, we're one of the fastest growing states in America right now. We've got thousands of companies coming in with really high tech jobs, also jobs that don't look the same way. When you think about even jobs like Amazon, factory work does not look the same, or warehouse work does not look the same as it did 10 years ago. So we really need an educated society, and that really starts with literacy. That learning to read piece becomes the key that unlocks all the other doors to math and sociology and other learning that we need to do in order to fill that workforce development piece in the way that it needs to be.
You've teased some of the programs already, but let's go ahead and dive in deeper. Let's start. You mentioned Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, so go ahead and dive in first there.
Yeah, beautiful program. Every child is eligible from the time they are born until they turn 5 years old. During that time, they'll receive a book a month, which would give them a home library of 60 books by the time their child turns 5 years old. So it is an amazing program. It costs nothing to individuals. Our foundation manages a grant from the state, and then each person's county, whether you live in Wilson County, Gibson County, or Obion County, there is an entity there that is raising funds for half of the cost of the books and mailing, but that comes to those families and is really a way to begin exposing your kids to rich text, giving opportunities for caregivers to read with their children at home and to create a love of reading.
And I know that for those, those are specially curated. It's opportunities, obviously, to bond with the parent, the child. So talk about some of those kind of nuances that really do power the good in so many ways through Dolly Parton's Imagination Library.
Yeah, you really keyed in on something that's really important, and I think, in my generation, and I'm probably a lot older than you, Jeremy. Parents thought they were supposed to read to their children, and we're understanding now that there's an opportunity to read with your children, really allowing them, whether they're reading a baby board book and they're chewing on it and touching those pages, to pointing at things, activating that reading sense. There is a bonding opportunity between parent, caregiver, and child. There's also time to really expose them to words and vocabulary, building that vocabulary. Every child during those earliest years needs to be hearing almost 3 million words and learning to kind of hear vocabulary all the time. So we see this as a very pivotal time in a child's life. And then as they're building that book library, they're seeing books in the home. And we know that home libraries have an enormous impact on a child's perception of themselves as a reader. And to see that as their parents are reading books, and I encourage parents out there to be reading in front of their kids, is that there's an exposure that this is the normal thing to do. This is what people do, is that we read.
Carry that into the home libraries, because I think this is an important goal for you as an organization, is curating those home libraries.
It is. It is. From the time a child is born until they reach third grade, they have an opportunity through our foundation's work to build a 100-book library. And we know from research that building a 100-book library is giving a child an advanced opportunity to make sure that they graduate from high school, that they engage in post-secondary education, and that they're ready for that workforce. We know that home libraries, that exposure to books, just having books in the home, actually has a psychological effect on a child, and also gives them an opportunity to make choices. What do I want to read today? What do I want to investigate? Whether they're picture books, chapter books, graphic novels, it's that exposure to all of that different type of literacy that basically builds out a balanced diet for a child.
I know we've had a chance to work with you with the book buses, but you bring the books out. And so talk about the book buses.
Yeah, so the book buses really started in an effort in Eastern Tennessee to reach children that were hard to get to during the summer months or when school was out due to weather. And as we started looking at this model, we realized there was something really powerful here. And then, of course, 2020 happened, and that created this keen opportunity for communities to really look at how do we reach those communities that are really tough to get to. And so whether you're in an urban district, a metro district, book buses are a great way to create a mobile library to take those literacy resources as well as partnerships with you on these book buses and really create a powerful sort of traveling literacy show. So we have seen book buses attach themselves to health programs, dental programs, food programs. So you can pretty much just imagine the level of partnership you can create there. But it's also creating an opportunity for children to come on a bus, choose some books that are either forever books that they're taking home. Some schools have attached their school libraries to those systems so kids can check books out and bring them back when the school year starts. So there's something really powerful about just making literacy an everyday activity. Some of these book buses, you'll see them at high school football games, community events, fairs, etc. And so we really see them as a great partnership to just exposing children to the world of literacy.
We had a chance to partner with you on the Delta Dental of Tennessee, Nashville Sound, Samaritan's Feet. It was a kids' dental day and shoe distribution. And so hundreds of kids coming out in Middle Tennessee, and as part of it, getting their teeth checked out from dentists. And so you had the oral health care side of it. You had the shoes with Samaritan's Feet, getting their feet washed and new shoes and all sorts of stuff. And then obviously the book bus as well. So really powerful partnership opportunity. Carry that into ways the community can partner with you, because I know for companies, for individuals and volunteers, you've got so many ways you can plug in and be a part of your efforts and support it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for individuals, if you are an individual, I would say one, there's volunteer opportunities during the month of August and September when we do a program called Owl Fest, which is opportunities with literacy. So there are some volunteer opportunities to serve in your community. I would encourage folks to donate. We are a nonprofit. We're our 501c3, and so supporting us financially really helps us to continue this work in a powerful way. For corporations, this is really about developing your future workforce. And I would say to any company or corporation in Tennessee or outside of Tennessee, it's a great opportunity to really invest in literacy and to be involved and engaged in what that looks like. We're working with a number of different companies to look at how do we serve the communities that you're serving and the employees that are working within your company to make sure that there's a rich literacy environment for them to have their children engage in. So across the board, just lots of opportunity for folks to step in and be a part of this work.
When you look at the evolution already with your leadership, as you mentioned, the growth in the programs, the expansion of the efforts, the impact obviously on our citizens, what are some of your goals looking forward? When you look in 2025 and beyond, what are some of your goals? And that can be program or just organizational.
Yeah, well, organizationally, we have tripled in size. It's been a massive 5 years of growth. But in terms of programmatically where we're headed, one is we're looking to serve some of our non-English speaking populations. So we've started a Spanish speaking program that I think is going to be extremely powerful. We're starting that in Knoxville and some of the surrounding counties. So we'll be looking at expanding that. We've been looking at some research. We really want to look at efficacy around the programs that we're doing, looking at ways that we can further enhance and enrich those products for parents, children, and families. But we're also leaning into artificial intelligence. There's some things that we're doing where we can look at how do we leverage that in a positive way that will help children really become more proficient readers, but also just find a joy, love, and passion for books. And then I think beyond that, we're looking for how do we continue to create this culture of literacy in our state. We'll be looking at doing an early literacy awareness campaign in 2025, where really helping us understand as a state and a community the importance of literacy and how the little things that we do make a big difference.
You mentioned AI. Touch on that balance of technology and youth learning on tablets and things like that. But in reality, too, there's no substitute for having a physical book, right? And so
That's right.
Talk about that balance of technology and yet keeping the importance of physical books and reading, on true pages, keeping that balance. So talk about that aspect.
And thank you for queuing that up. It's very keen. Our goal as a foundation is to get kids off of devices. We know that devices are really destroying our youngest learners' minds, their ability to focus, their ability to pay attention for periods of time. So the artificial intelligence that we're looking at is actually a program and a product that will help a child engage in a physical book. It does not take them onto a device. So we're looking at using that artificial intelligence as a feedback tool for parents, teachers, and the child themselves to learn to build their vocabulary, phonemic awareness, but also to just have fun, to engage in a book and find ways in which they've not engaged with that book. We do encourage physical reading, also realizing that we're in an era where we have digital natives. And so how do we reach some of those children and families and further enhance that reading and not isolating folks because they are using those devices? And so thinking through ways of how can we create some digital content that's responsible for children that are old enough to be able to engage in that kind of format.
What are some of the success metrics that you track against? Because obviously when you look at the work you're doing, it can be number of books, it can be households. There's a lot of things I think that you can track against to show success. What are the things that you're, tracking against right now and obviously looking for in the future?
Yeah, so the things that we've been looking for at the moment, most of them are what we would call not quantitative but qualitative data. So really getting feedback from teachers and parents on the quality of the products, how they're being used, how often they're being used, so that we can start tracking whether or not they're actually being engaged with. I think the next step for us is to start looking at some of those quantifiable factors around how do we see this impacting a child's motivation to read, their perception of themselves as a reader, and then also do we see an uptick? So one of the things I'll be giving away the farm on a little bit, but we want to look at how are children and families engaging with libraries? It's a free resource. So, while I love owning my books and having a bookshelf filled with great novels, there's a community resource that is often undertapped. And so we want to look at in utilizing these programs and sending them out to children and families, do we see our libraries getting some concurrent business in terms of people coming and utilizing that as a service, as well as we're going to be doing some qualitative and quantitative research using some of our great universities like UT Knoxville, Lipscomb, and others.
Well, we've touched on ways to get involved. We've touched on the importance and the impact of the programs and all of your efforts. But wrap up now with contact information. Where can we go to carry this conversation forward? Where can we go to get involved with the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation?
Absolutely. The easiest way to find us is to go to governorsfoundation.org. There's lots of information, including all of our social channels are on there. You can find us on Instagram, where we post a lot of content. People can engage with us there. But I would encourage folks, go to the website, look at programs that are engaging and interesting to you. There's information about how to connect with us there.
Well, James, thank you for all you and your amazing team do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jeremy. Appreciate you.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.